And now I would like to invite paper which will be presented by Jarmila Dubravská, PhD, that will connect remotely, who is the member of the Economic and Social Committee of EU. Thank you very much. Within this conference, I would like to express my thanks for its organizing, because the future of the European agriculture, in fact, it's not indifferent to anyone who presented at this conference or who is participating remotely. I would like to focus on several areas in my paper. So I would like to focus on the Green Deal. Briefly, and then I would like to discuss farm to fork, or a product delivered from farm to the consumer, and also I would like to discuss about preparation of decisions, or where the mistakes are made because the impact studies were not available in time. Still, they are not available those we have expected. And I also would like to see the situation, touch upon situation in different countries. We already had a chance to listen Mr. Jandesek's paper, how the situation will develop in the Czech Republic. Nevertheless, it's necessary to state that the Green Deal, as adopted, will represent trouble for every member state of EU. Nevertheless, I would like to highlight that it will have fatal impacts on both Czech and Slovak republics. We will just do much worse compared to countries that are producing more and export surplus production. Then I would also like to speak about the potential future and what we can do about the turning situation. What in fact preceded the Green Deal? I guess you remember that Green Deal was discussed in time when we were living in wealthy states. We didn't have troubles with production. We did not have troubles with any crisis. And barriers, embargo that worsened our situation in markets, not only in foreign markets, but also in domestic markets. So it's necessary to highlight that discussions about Green Deal was conducted in time when we were living in good situation without any troubles. Nowadays, we are living 2 years in crisis caused by COVID-19, and I think we should simply adopt decisions according to modified situation. I don't want to scare anyone, but you all know how prices of individual commodities are rising, and you see that quite often it is about speculation that results in increasing prices of gas, fuel. Oil did not increase, the price of oil did not increase that much, but the prices of fuel is multiple now. And this is automatically reflected in other areas also. So what is related to price increases, in fact, it is reflected in increased cost of many other services and products, and it's quite clear that finally we will pay for those changes. Somebody will get rich, but we will all pay for it. We just wanted to get ready for changes in energy, industry, mobility. We would like to establish e-mobility, but we are not ready for it at all. And we know that today we will not have sufficient number of charging stations. And just one simple fact is that batteries are not produced within EU. It is produced in third countries, and we won't have sufficient quantity of employees, number of employees who will simply produce different devices related to e-mobility. And we have to think also about a strategy that would like to ensure to us consumer great food, but at the same time is aimed at excellent conditions for farmers. Probably it will not happen. We have heard the explanation in previous papers who highlighted the alerting situation. I just wanted to explain that the entire strategy from farmer to consumer has very ambitious goals. Nevertheless, those goals are in contradiction. At one hand, we want food chains, that means production of food up to us final consumers will have either neutral or positive impact on the environment. We want to renew landscape elements, but on the other hand, we do not consider at all that once we change one system, that means changing system of food production, and this system is currently well established. And if we modify this well established system, then of course it will result in certain shortcomings. Population will really not appreciate if there is lack of basic food, and government in individual countries would like to prepare good social situation and eliminate riots. What we have witnessed, for instance, in Belgium during the pandemic, basic food was missing in retail stores. So the same strategy is aimed at climate changes and amendment to individual impacts, and at the same time it is aimed at protection of soil, water, and air. Those are all good goals. And nevertheless, we just move away from the theory to practice, then we see that we will just deliver controversial effects. So we want to ensure food safety for populations, for inhabitants, so everybody will have sufficient quantity of healthy food, safe food. We want to breed animals in good conditions, and I think no farmer wishes something else, because for farmers, animals represent like basic production mean, and in fact, farmers have good relationship to animals. Usually, they treat animals in the way that they should be treated. So they are preparing good environmental conditions, so the animal should not be threatened. It should live in prosperous environment. It may happen that some farmers miss to do so, that's true, but according to few examples from the good agriculture practice, we know that most farmers are really doing a good job, and unfortunately, this is the trend in EU. Well, we can see it across entire Europe, not only in Czech Republic or Slovakia. A lot of non-profit organizations that are focused on environment and animal husbandry. They lack even basic experience. They lack experience, and they even do not know what the animals need. And they really do not know how to establish good farming practices. We apologize for technical trouble. Hopefully, we will resolve it soon, because it will be pity to miss the information that Mrs. Dubravská had prepared for us. I apologize for technical failure. I hope the connection is good now. So I would like to come back to the impact studies. In fact, the European Commission was supposed to deliver individual expert positions together with the impact. And it's necessary to say that despite the fact that those requirements were raised, in fact, we didn't have it available as members of EESC, Economic, European and Social Committee. We have attended a number of meetings and seminars, but at none of those seminars, when we have requested the outputs from the European Commission, we have not received it. And you know what is interesting? It is interesting that the first studies focusing on the impact on EU, impact on the other countries, and the entire planet, with respect to different prepared strategies and Green Deal. In fact, the first state that came with such predictions was USA. So in fact, USA, the United States Department of Agriculture, had prepared a study and monitored how individual states will be impacted, or what would cause adoption, what adoption of a Green Deal would cause. So, as we already heard the explanation about Green Deal at the beginning of our conference, it's not an agreement. In fact, it's a deal that will be with us for a long time unless we change the strategy. Then we have really other interesting study, Wageningen University and Research Institute, that confirms number of issues also. And then we got studies from Joint Research Center. So what is the position of USA? What USA thinks about current Europe and its commitment? First of all, the evaluation was published in November 2020, already much earlier compared to the Wageningen studies or the Joint Research Center's studies. And in fact, the Department of Agriculture of USA is focusing on the use of agricultural land together with all the criteria we would like to achieve by 2030, everything that was set. And it's necessary to say that considering different scenarios prepared by USA, stating that it will impact only EU countries. Then the other scenario that was prepared stated that in fact the Green Deal would impact also other countries we trade with, or where we in fact have mutual economic interests. And the third scenario was, would it look like on global level. So what would happen if all countries in the world will follow the requirements of a Green Deal, or at least those countries that produce food, lot of food, or export it to other countries? It is necessary to state that with the different scenarios, it is expected that the competitiveness would be lost, and self-sufficiency will be also lost, or in fact, production of food would decrease. Prices of food will substantially increase. But what is also related to that is impact on the environment, because if we don't have sufficient number of livestock, then we already heard how this would impact negatively the quality of environment. It is necessary to say that the farming production is estimated by 12%, and with the same time population will grow. Then reduced food availability is the other issue. In fact, we try to deliver food to population through different food banks, for instance, but in fact, the number of people depending on the food banks and those sources will increase. We just expect that 22 million more people would be at risk in the EU. Nevertheless, if the Green Deal is implemented globally, then 185 million people worldwide would be at risk. Then once production and export would be reduced, then markets would be lost. And in fact, Wageningen has the same opinion. The study focused on 4 scenarios. In fact, a reduction in different EU countries, and Wageningen study shows what will be at risk. And I'm quite sure that my colleague will explain it later on. He will talk about a commodity, about fruit, commodity he loves. And by implementing Green Deal, we may lose up to 30% of certain commodities. And in case of, for instance, sugar beet, we won't be able to grow sugar beet and produce sugar at all. So we will depend even more on imports. And Wageningen compared the conventional farming with organic farming. And I just wanted to highlight the Wageningen study recommends to use new breeding techniques, just to use different subsidies schemes to organic farmers to strengthen the production. It is necessary to state that the production will drop. And in the past, we had heard one article, we could read it, suggesting if we increase the share of organic farming, then our planet won't be sufficient for us. I just wanted to state how it looks like in the old EU countries, because it's quite clear that countries of Eastern and Central Europe will face negative impacts upon adoption of a Green Deal and upon implementation of individual requirements in practice. For instance, the Netherlands had prepared the measures for 23 to 27, how these strategic plans may look like. 125 farms were tested, and 1/3 of those farms managed to reach conditions for the lowest subsidy. The lowest one, no farm fulfilled the requirements of those conditions, no middle-sized or large farms. And we are talking about farms that are specialized in those commodities. Then speaking about Denmark, they've prepared eco-schemes, and they are also stating that substantial changes will be delivered by dozens of percentages in number of livestock, and especially in production. Allow me to focus on the conclusion now, because, of course, it's the action and reaction law. So with rules set as they are, it does not mean we cannot do anything about it, and it does not mean that we should just accept it and be happy with that. So in fact, the decision making does not work as it should, because in fact, experts are not deciding on the expert issues, and those who decide quite often lack any competence, and once they leave their positions, there is no accountability. In fact, we cannot enforce the accountability even if they are in the given positions. So every member state should probably share opinions in different platforms, speaking with ministries, speaking at the floor of EU. And I'm really pleased that the reasonable opinions are raised. Then open consultation does not work, because in fact dozens of thousands of people may look into consultation, but in reality only 5% of them conducted agriculture activities with experience. That means finally people without any farming knowledge decided on farming, and it was also reflected in common agriculture policy. We leave decisions up to those who don't know much about farming. If they ask for capping, if they ask us to split big farms, resulting in a number of small farms that won't be able to survive. We should set realistic goals. Nowadays, we are talking about strategy that is prepared up to 2030, which is in fact one function period. So if the previous strategy is evaluated, we have never managed to achieve the goal. So it's quite irrational aiming at achieving everything now in 7 years. And we should really consider the reality and apply the unified measures, for instance, pesticides or microbiological agents or herbicides and so on. Everything should be considered, knowing the history. We must not set conditions to mid-size and large farms identical to conditions set to micro farms and small farms. There are different historical backgrounds in different countries. So I guess that or a lot of us now skipped the idea of having a global market, and we realized that we should promote local markets instead. And in fact, it is necessary to incorporate this philosophy into the policies. And speaking about funding the policies, we, of course, should protect environment, but currently at the same time, we just support leaving the land uncultivated, and it is in contradiction. Generally speaking, those programs must be interconnected. What we can do, we should in fact promote better legislation in EU, but also nationally. That means within all member states. And probably we should start with unfair business trading practices, where in fact a lot of countries around us adopted legislation that it is not possible to sell products, commodities under the production cost, and they are in fact setting the percentage of margin for the farmers. They are the most vulnerable elements of the entire food supply chain. And speaking about the business competitiveness, we should increase it. We should support the local, regional, and national products. It's not in contradiction to market. Of course, we will keep importing commodities we need. But we should keep in mind that once we let strategies to overrule us, then we won't have to talk about the strategies of agriculture for dozens of years because it won't work. Thank you very much for your attention, and I apologize for technical troubles. Thank you very much.